Chapter 4. What fickle creatures we are! I, who had resolved to remain independent of all social interaction, and was grateful to have finally found a place where it was nearly impossible. I, a weak soul, after battling low spirits and solitude until dusk, was ultimately forced to surrender. And under the guise of seeking information about the needs of my household, I asked Mrs. Dean, when she brought in the supper, to sit with me while I ate, hoping sincerely she would turn out to be a regular chatterbox, either stirring me to life or lulling me to sleep. With her conversation, "You've lived here quite a while," I began. "Didn't you say 16 years?" "18 years, sir. I started here when the mistress got married to serve her. After she passed, the master kept me on as the housekeeper." "Indeed." A silence followed. She didn't seem the type to indulge in idle chatter, unless it concerned her own life, which held little interest for me. Yet, after a moment of contemplation, her hands resting on her knees and her face thoughtful, she exclaimed, "Ah, how much things have changed since then!" "Yes," I replied. "You must have witnessed quite a few changes, I imagine." "I have, and plenty of troubles too," she replied. "I'll steer the conversation towards my landlord's family," I decided. "That should be an engaging topic. And that intriguing young widow. I'd like to learn her story. Is she a local? Or, more likely, an outsider, whom the gruff locals refuse to accept as one of their own?" With this in mind, I asked Mrs. Dean why Heathcliff chose to rent out Thrushcross Grange and live in a place so much less grand. "Isn't he wealthy enough to maintain the estate properly?" I inquired. "Rich, sir," she replied. "He's got more money than anyone can count, and it just keeps growing every year. Yes, he's wealthy enough to live in a grander house than this, but he's tight-fisted. If he planned to move to Thrushcross Grange, he'd never pass up the chance to squeeze out a few extra hundreds from a good tenant. It's odd how people can be so greedy when they're all alone in the world. He had a son, didn't he?" "Yes, he did. He's passed away." "And that young lady, Mrs. Heathcliff, she's his widow?" "Yes." "Where did she originally come from?" "Well, sir, she's my late master's daughter. Catherine Linton was her maiden name. I took care of her, poor thing. I hoped Mr. Heathcliff would move here, and then we could have been together again." "What? Catherine Linton?" I exclaimed, surprised. But after a moment's thought, I realized she wasn't my spectral Catherine. Yeah. "Then," I continued, "was my predecessor named Linton?" "Yes, that's correct." "And who is this Earnshaw, Hareton Earnshaw, who lives with Mr. Heathcliff? Are they related?" "No, he's the nephew of the late Mrs. Linton." "So he's the young lady's cousin?" "Yes, indeed. And her husband was her cousin as well. One related through her mother, the other through her father. Heathcliff married Mr. Linton's sister. I noticed the name Earnshaw carved above the door at Wuthering Heights. Is it an old family?" "Very old, sir. And Hareton is the last of them, just as our Miss Cathy is the last of the Lintons. Have you visited Wuthering Heights?" I apologize for asking, but I'm eager to know how she is." "Mrs. Heathcliff? She appeared quite well and very beautiful, though I suspect not particularly happy." "Oh dear, I'm not surprised. And what did you think of the master? He's a rather rough character, Mrs. Dean." "Isn't that just his nature? Rough as a saw's edge and as hard as granite. Best to steer clear of him. He must have had quite a life to turn out so bitter. Do you know anything about his past?" "It's like a cuckoo's tail, sir. I know everything except where he was born, who his parents were, and how he first came by his money. And poor Hareton has been cast aside like a fledgling sparrow. The poor boy is the only one around here who doesn't realize how he's been swindled." "Well, Mrs. Dean, it would be a kindness to tell me more about my neighbours. I doubt I'll sleep if I go to bed now. Please sit and chat with me for an hour." "Oh, of course, sir. I'll just grab some sewing and then I'll stay as long as you like. But you've caught a chill. I noticed you shivering, and you should have some gruel to ward it off." The good woman bustled away, and I moved closer to the fire. My head felt hot, while the rest of me was cold. I was also quite agitated, almost to the point of foolishness, with my nerves and mind on edge. This left me feeling not uncomfortable, but rather anxious, as I still am, about the serious consequences of today's and yesterday's events. She soon returned, carrying a steaming basin and a basket of work. She set the basin on the hearth and settled into her seat, clearly pleased to find me such agreeable company. "Before I moved here," she began, needing no further prompt to share her tale, "I spent most of my time at Wuthering Heights. My mother had been Mr. Hindley Earnshaw's nurse, Hareton's father, so I grew up playing with the children there. I ran errands, helped with the hay, and lingered around the farm, ready to do whatever was needed. One bright summer morning, at the start of the harvest, I remember it well. Mr. Earnshaw, the old master, came downstairs dressed for a journey. After instructing Joseph on the day's tasks, he turned to Hindley, Cathy, and me. I was eating porridge with them, and said to his son, "Now, me bonny lad, I'm heading to Liverpool today. What would you like me to bring you? Choose something small, for I'll be walking there and back. 60 miles each way is quite a trek." Hindley asked for a fiddle, and then he turned to Miss Cathy. She was barely 6, yet she could ride any horse in the stable, and she chose a whip. He didn't forget me. He had a kind heart, despite his sternness at times. He promised to bring me a pocketful of apples and pears, kissed his children goodbye, and set off. Those 3 days of his absence felt long to us all, and little Cathy often asked when he would return. Mrs. Earnshaw expected him home by supper on the 3rd evening, delaying the meal hour after hour. Yet there was no sign of his arrival, and eventually the children grew weary of running to the gate to check. As darkness fell, she wanted to send them to bed, but they pleaded to stay up. Finally, around 11 o'clock, the door latch lifted quietly, and the master stepped inside. He collapsed into a chair, laughing and groaning, warning everyone to keep their distance, for he was nearly worn out. He wouldn't endure such a journey again for all the kingdoms. "And to end it all with a fright," he exclaimed, opening his greatcoat, which he held bundled in his arms. "Look here, wife, I've never been so exhausted by anything in my life. But you must accept it as a gift from God, though it seems as dark as if it came from the devil." We gathered around, and over Miss Cathy's head, I caught a glimpse of a dirty, ragged, black-haired child, old enough to walk and talk. Its face appeared older than Catherine's, yet when set on its feet, it merely stared around, repeating some gibberish that no one could comprehend. I was alarmed, and Mrs. Earnshaw was ready to throw it out. She erupted, questioning how he could bring such a gypsy child into their home when they had their own children to care for. What did he intend to do with it? And had he lost his mind? The master tried to explain, but he was truly half dead with exhaustion. Amidst her scolding, all I could gather was his tale of finding it starving, homeless, and nearly mute on the streets of Liverpool, where he picked it up and sought its owner. No one knew who it belonged to, he explained, and with limited money and time, he decided it was better to take it home immediately rather than incur unnecessary expenses there. He was resolved not to leave it as he found it. Eventually, my mistress grumbled herself into calmness, and Mr. Earnshaw instructed me to wash it, dress it in clean clothes, and let it sleep with the children. Hindley and Cathy simply watched and listened until peace returned. Then they both began rummaging through their father's pockets for the gifts he had promised. Hindley, a boy of 14, pulled out what used to be a fiddle, now crushed to pieces in the coat, and he burst into tears. Cathy, upon discovering that her father had lost her whip while tending to the stranger, expressed her displeasure by grinning and spitting at the odd little creature, which earned her a sharp slap from her father to teach her better manners. They flatly refused to have it sleep in their bed or even in their room. Lacking better judgment, I placed it on the landing of the stairs, hoping it would be gone by morning. By chance, or perhaps drawn by the sound of his voice, it crept to Mr. Earnshaw's door, where he found it upon leaving his room. When asked how it got there, I had to admit my actions, and as punishment for my cowardice and lack of compassion, I was sent out of the house. This was Heathcliff's first introduction to the family. When I returned, a few days later, as I didn't believe my exile was permanent, I discovered they had named him Heathcliff, after a son who had died in childhood. The name has been his ever since, serving as both his first and last name. Miss Cathy and he had grown quite close, while Hindley despised him. And, to be honest, so did I. We tormented him mercilessly, without a shred of fairness, and the mistress never spoke up for him when she witnessed the injustice. He was a withdrawn, patient child, seemingly accustomed to mistreatment. Hindley's blows didn't make him flinch or cry, and my pinches only made him inhale sharply and widen his eyes, as if he'd accidentally hurt himself, and no one else was at fault. This stoic endurance infuriated old Earnshaw when he caught his son tormenting the poor fatherless boy, as he called him. Earnshaw grew oddly fond of Heathcliff, trusting his every word, though he spoke little, and usually truthfully, and he favoured him over Cathy, who was too mischievous and unruly to be a favourite. From the outset, this favouritism sowed discord in the household. After Mrs. Earnshaw passed away, less than 2 years later, the young master came to see his father as a tyrant rather than a friend, and Heathcliff as an intruder who had stolen his father's love, and his rightful place. This resentment festered within him. I shared his feelings for a time, but when the children fell ill with measles, and I had to care for them, taking on the responsibilities of a woman all at once, my perspective shifted. Heathcliff was gravely ill, and during his worst moments, he insisted on my presence by his bedside. Perhaps he sensed I did much for him, though he didn't realize I was obliged to. Nonetheless, I must admit, he was the calmest child I ever nursed. The contrast between him and the others made me reconsider my partiality. Cathy and her brother tormented me relentlessly. He endured it all with the quiet acceptance of a lamb, though it was more a result of his stubbornness than any gentleness that he caused so little trouble. He pulled through, and the doctor credited much of his recovery to my efforts, praising my attentive care. I took pride in his commendations and felt a softened regard for the one through whom I had earned them, leaving Hindley without his last supporter. Yet I couldn't bring myself to adore Heathcliff, and I often wondered what my master found so admirable in the brooding boy, who, as far as I could recall, never showed any gratitude for the kindness he received. He wasn't rude to his benefactor. He was simply indifferent, fully aware of the power he held over Mr. Earnshaw's affections, knowing he only needed to speak to have the entire household bend to his desires. For example, I remember when Mr. Earnshaw bought 2 colts at the parish fair and gave one to each boy. Heathcliff chose the more handsome one, but it soon went lame, and upon realizing this, he said to Hindley, "You have to swap horses with me. I don't like mine. And if you refuse, I'll tell your father about the 3 beatings you've given me this week, and show him my arm, which is bruised black up to the shoulder." Hindley stuck out his tongue and cuffed him around the ears. "You'd better do it right away," Heathcliff insisted, retreating to the porch. They were in the stable. "You'll have to. And if I mention these blows, you'll receive them back with interest." "Get lost, you cur!" Hindley shouted, threatening him with an iron weight used for weighing potatoes and hay. "Go ahead and throw it," he said, standing firm. "Then I'll remind you how you bragged about kicking me out once he passed away, and we'll see if he doesn't throw you out instead." Hindley hurled it, striking him in the chest. Heathcliff fell, but quickly got back up, pale and gasping for air. If I hadn't stopped him, he would have gone straight to the master, seeking revenge by letting his injuries speak for themselves, hinting at who was responsible. "Take my colt, gypsy!" young Earnshaw shouted, "and may it break your neck. Take it and be damned, you wretched intruder. Go ahead and con my father out of everything he owns. But later show him your true colours, you devil's spawn. And take this. I hope it kicks your brains out." Heathcliff went to untie the animal and move it to his own stall. As he passed behind it, Hindley ended his tirade by shoving him under the horse's hooves, then dashed off without checking if his wish had come true. I was struck by how calmly the boy picked himself up and continued with his task, switching saddles and all, before sitting on a pile of hay to recover from the blow's nausea before entering the Jesus. I easily convinced him to let me blame his bruises on the horse. He cared little for the story, as long as he got what he wanted. He rarely complained about such incidents, leading me to believe he wasn't vengeful. I was completely wrong, as you'll soon discover.